Hey, what's up, y'all? Excuse me. This is now the fifth episode of the Wiretap. Again, thank you for everybody that support, watch, everybody that tap in with me and give me their time. I really appreciate it. And moving forward, I'm gonna stop the lives and I'm gonna go ahead and just record so I can upload my show to different social media outlets like YouTube, SoundCloud, things like that. Plus, I want a more professional look. So I'm going to go ahead and just start doing it like that from now on. But again, I appreciate everybody that come and watch and give me their input on what I can do better, what topics I should talk about. And tonight's topic is an interesting one because a lot of us have dealt with this, which is co-parenting, right? The saying is it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes the two people that created that child. I think that the mother and father who aren't together have to find a middle ground to be able to raise the child in the manner that they deem to be fit. Again, we can't control the choices our children make once we let them go into the world, but we can definitely give them the guidance that they need in order to be successful. But I also believe that you have to meet somewhere in the middle with your partner or parent, whatever you want to call it. And tonight I'm just going to be speaking on my own perspective of the situation. I co-parent with my oldest son, and I'm going to pour from stories that I've heard from other people or people that I know that are going through that same situation. Now, as I said earlier, it definitely takes two people to raise a child, and it definitely takes a compromise in order for you guys to raise a child in a healthy manner. My oldest son is now 6, and me and his mom have definitely struggled with coming to a common ground in order to raise our son together. We live on totally two opposite ends of the world, what it feels like at least. I reside in West Baltimore. She resides in East Baltimore. And sometimes that can be a lot, just simply the pick up and drop off, the schools, whatever decisions we come to as far as with our son. Now, I think the mistake that a lot of people make when a child is involved is that they tend to take ownership of the child. It's like, this is my son. This is what I say goes, the whole nine. I've definitely run into that problem a lot with his mom feeling like her choices is what's in his best interest. And for a while, we bumped heads. It can be stressful, especially when one parent in society's eyes is doing better than the other parent. It can be difficult trying to make choices that will benefit the child. And I always have to remind myself, because sometimes I do want to get petty. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, he can go back in them same clothes that he came over here with, or I'm not doing that because you should be a parent as well in the situation. One of the biggest things that I believe in is that just because a child is with the other parent, it doesn't stop. Like, just because my son is with his mom on her week doesn't mean I stop being a dad, and vice versa. And I think sometimes people get caught in that loop of, okay, this is your week, so you have to figure it out. You have to, make the choices and decisions on what's needed for the child. And I try not to operate in that. I try to be as transparent as I can be with my son's mother. I try to engage in conversation, that will benefit him in the long run, because again, ultimately, that's who our decisions affect. It affects him and how he's growing and what he's learning. And eventually, when he becomes a man, some of the choices that he makes once he's in the world. Co-parenting in itself is definitely difficult. It can be strenuous because, again, if one parent is doing better than the other parent, right? The other parent can sometimes believe that their choices should overrule the other parent's choices. It's like, yeah, I live in a better environment, I have better schools and the whole nine, but it doesn't mean that the other parent can't put in their perspective on what's best for the child. I know one of the difficulties that I've run into is having him in extracurricular activity, if it's football or just after school programs, things like that. It can be difficult because, my son goes to school over east. Again, I live over west, so that's putting a lot of wear and tear on my vehicle. I want my son to be in sports, because I got to experience that. And for me, being in sports helped me overcome a lot of struggles in life. So I want my son to have that experience. But that would mean that the weeks that he's with his mom, I would have to go over east, come back all the way over west, and then take him all the way back over east. And sometimes that feels like a lot. Like I said, just because he's with me on that week, it doesn't stop her from being a mom or being, responsible for what's in his best interest. It's just, again, a difficult situation. I never thought I would be in a situation like this. The people before me, some of my family members, they don't really have this experience, at least my close family members, except for one. And a lot of the advice that I got was from him. I remember one of our issues was me not sending certain things to her house. And in my mind, and what I was told was that, you need to have your own stuff. So that's how I carry things. It's like, I'm not asking you to send him with clothes and Pampers and things like that. I have that stuff already. I don't need what you have because I have my own. But eventually that caused a conflict because of her circumstances. I don't want to get too deep into that situation, but I do feel like that in order for us to raise him properly, we have to have a middle ground. And we have found some common ground with each other. We have been able to work through certain issues or disagreements we've had. But I know from certain friends of mine that are also in this situation, they don't have that compromise. They have to solely depend on the choices that they make for their child. My current child, I'm with his mom. So we, work together in that situation. But with some people, they don't have a partner, right? And those situations can become stressful for them due to the fact that no one is there to help them pick up any slack. It's like, if I want to run out or go to the gym, I could just be like, hey, I'm going to run out and go to the gym. And it's fine. And vice versa. If she need to go somewhere and run out and do something, she can do that. But for some people that are in co-parenting situations or don't even have a partner, those options are limited. They can't just get up and go. They may not be able to invest in building themselves in the way that they see fit. Some people just got to deal with the child in that moment. I know a lot of people who have questioned me on my weight loss and the amount of hours that I put in the gym. They like, oh, I can't do that. And it's always like, well, why? It's like, because I have no one to keep my child during the hours that the gym operates. Some people only work 9 to 5s and then they got to come home and they got to deal with their children. Some people, again, don't even have that option to leave their child with someone. So it can be a difficult situation when you're trying to invest in yourself, but you also have to raise a child. Like I said, co-parenting is not an easy situation. It's not like, again, if I had my son and then something comes up with work, it's not like I can just be like, hey, can you take him? It turns into, oh, it's your week. You have to figure that out. And rightfully so. Like in some situations, yes, the other parent may be able to help. But if they have a week where they don't have their child, they plan that week and they work with that week however they see fit. Like when I don't have my son, I might pick up extra hours at work, or I might spend an extra 2-3 hours at the gym. Whatever my prerogative is, I do that. But it's not going to always be a situation where I can call her and be like, hey, can you take him? She might have something planned. She might have a date. She might have, I don't know, maybe she does the same thing where she wants to work and pick up extra hours. I don't know. So sometimes she isn't available. But I do believe that in circumstances where you can help, you should. You should help the other parent if a situation approaches where their time is compromised with work or some other dire situation. I'm not saying for leisure, of course, but you should be able to take the child for a moment if the other parent is unable to get to the child. There's been situations where I've had to stay at work and I have called her and I said, hey, can he come chill there for an hour or two and I can come there and pick him up? And she's compromised in that sense. And I know, again, some people that don't have that. They can't call the other parent and say, hey, can you take such and such for about an hour or two? And it can be stressful. Like, the things that I've seen some of my friends go through is like, wow, like, I'm glad I have a support system that I can put ahead of his mom. She's somewhat of the last resort I go to when it comes to pickups and drop-offs, or if I have to stay at work, I can call my mom, I can call my dad, I can call my mom's fiance, I can call my stepmother, I can call my grandmother, I have like a list of people that I can call that is able to help me out, but she don't have that. So in certain situations, she has asked me to keep him an extra week or an extra day, and I've compromised in that way because, again, it's all about him. It's all about his safety, and I would rather my son be with me versus being put with just any old body. Not saying she would do that, but I'm just saying I don't even want to put her in a situation where she has to just call someone and say, hey, can you take him from me? Like I said before, even if he's not with me that week, I have no issue with keeping him because that's going to help not only her, but him. So I think about these things, and some of the stories that I hear, I'm just shocked by because, again, being petty towards the other parent isn't going to benefit the child. Again, I've been called out on some petty things I've done. Again, Adrian that's my son's name. He was my first child. And with that experience, it doesn't come with a manual, especially in the situation where we wasn't together, we didn't plan on having a child, and here's this child. So now we have to not only try to figure each other out, but now we have to figure out this parenting situation that's one new for me, and for her that was her second child. So she had already been through having a child and already having some experiences in what to do and what not to do. Whereas with me, I didn't have those experiences. Like for a while, it was hard for me to break from being selfish. And what I mean by that is I would sometimes splurge on myself and then be like, oh, wait, I can't do this no more. I got a child. I got to make sure he's straight first. And it took me a while to break that habit, again, because the concept is out of sight, out of mind. Not saying that I didn't never think of my son, but when I would do certain things, it would just be like, oh yeah, I want these shoes, or oh, I want this fit. And then he would turn around and need something, and I would have it, but it would hurt my pockets. And I'm thinking to myself like, oh, I should have definitely called first and definitely figured out, what he needed. And eventually what I did for myself was I created a system, or whatever you want to call it, that would allow me to put his needs above mine. So what I did was every Monday, the week that I got paid, I would text her and say, hey, what does he need? Is there anything he needs? How can I help? You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, that was the things that I started doing to help me break away from being selfish. But I also believe that parents should understand that the other parents' options or opinions or perceptions of things is just as valid as theirs. Like I said, some people have a habit of taking ownership of the child, and they believe that all their choices are the right choices, and they don't even want to hear the choices of the other parent. And usually you find that in situations with the mother who feels like, she carried the child, she birthed the child, so I'm making all the choices for him or her. And if it's a co-parenting situation, if there's no, not saying there's no respect, but if there's a lack of respect for the other parent, the mother could see the father's opinions to be non-valid. It's like, this is my child, I had him, so I'm making all the choices. I don't care what you say. Or, okay, I hear you, but I'm going to still do what I want to do. And that's what kind of causes the friction between the parents, because if I feel like this is what's in my son's best interest or my daughter's best interest, and you're telling me that you don't care, or you're not showing that you value my option, then it kind of puts a person at odds with the parent. Like, okay, you're not hearing me. It don't seem like you want to hear me. So then what's the purpose of me being here? You get what I'm saying? So it's like, that was a big thing for me in the beginning, because I felt like I wasn't being heard as a father. It was certain things that I would try to implement that she would just negate. It just was like talking to a wall for the most part. And it was very frustrating. And some of the stories that I hear with fathers that are in that situation, it's like, oh man, like, yeah, I think your option might have been a little better than that one. Or, they'll be like, well, I told her in the beginning it should be like this, and now she having problems, and we didn't even have to go down this road. But yeah, that's how it happened. I just want the people that do co-parent to be able to understand each other's issues and understand that life is still happening around the child. And again, if you could utilize me, even if it's not my week or my weekend, then so be it. Because again, it doesn't stop me from being that child's parent. It doesn't mean that I can't assist or help in some kind of way. Now, maybe if it's last minute and I already had prior obligations with work, or something that needed attention. And again, this is not something I mean by like leisure. Like, I'm not going to take my son because I want to go to a party, or because I just want to sit home and relax. I'm not going to do that, because again, I would rather him be with me than just to be with anybody. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that because they want to be petty to the other parent. Again, I've been called out on it, and it is a selfish thing to do. It's very selfish because it doesn't benefit the child, and it does put a perception on the other parent about you. You know, they may look at you as not being reliable or not being able to raise your child. You know, I've been told that my choices weren't the best because it didn't benefit the other parent, right? So an example would be camp, right? We had a disagreement on camp, and the disagreement led to us having to go back to court because she needed the camp that he was at versus the camp that I picked. I necessarily didn't, I'm not going to say need because I definitely needed it, but they had more leeway. So most camps or most after school programs, they have rules, right? And the camp that he was at with her, it was, one, it was free, and two, it was within walking distance, and three, it was with the students that he had went to school with. So, you know, that those were benefits to her. For me, I needed something that would have allowed me to be able to pick him up because of my work hours. That was relatively close. And the camp had some structure. The camp definitely had some things for the kids to do that was outside of just being in the school or just going to a playground. It had multiple things that I think my son could have benefited from. So once I was told that he couldn't miss the camp because the camp had rules, it was like, well, how do we figure this out? Because if he goes to that camp, I'm unable to get him because of my work hours. It wasn't like, you know, I was getting off at a certain time and then just wanted to go and play. It was like, no, like I'm literally stuck at work. And for her, it was about money. So we couldn't come to a compromise, and unfortunately we had to go back to court for that. But it worked itself out, and I'm hoping that this summer it definitely continues to work out. I don't want to have to keep going back in court because I feel like some of our issues we shouldn't have to run back and forth to court for, and I know some people do that. With what I do, I see it all the time. I see like the pettiness, you know, like a story once I heard the guy came in and he was like, yeah, she wouldn't pick him up from school and I couldn't get off. And now I need to change my my custody arrangement. And it's like, that's something I felt like that was kind of petty in a sense. Not petty in the sense of him wanting to rearrange the custody order, but it was just like, well, was there nothing that you two could compromise on? And sometimes, like I said, when another parent is trying to be petty, they don't even want to hear, you know, the compromise or a solution to the problem. I've heard stories of that where mothers or fathers have come up with suggestions and the other parent don't even care to hear it. And, you know, it turns into that game. It turns into the keep away game. Well, if you can't do this, then you're not going to see him or her. Or if you're not going to do that, then don't even bother to come around. And again, like I said, that doesn't benefit the child at all. You know, that shows the child that you two have conflict, depending upon, you know, what the other parent is saying about the other parent, because that can be dangerous too. You can definitely have parents who will down talk the other parent when the other parent is trying. There have been situations that I've heard about where the child grows up resenting the other parent, and once they have a conversation, they found out that the parent was really trying, but the other parent was just continuously being petty or just being difficult in every way possible. And to them, it was just mind-boggling because they like, this whole time I thought you just didn't want to be in my life, but you were trying, and this parent was keeping you away from me. So you don't want things to happen that way. Because then once the child grows up and they find out the stories or whatever it is, they'll definitely resent you for that. They'll be like, such and such wanted to be in my life, but you made it very difficult for them. Or you put them in a position where they couldn't afford to be in my life, meaning child support, And I know for some people it is beneficial and necessary, but for some of the people that I know that are very involved in their children's lives, I don't understand it. And it almost seems like a way to make the other parent's life difficult, because this is what I believe. If you have an active parent, right? If you have an active father or mother in the child's life, depending upon the situation, and we all know usually that's the child primarily being with the mother and possibly coming with the dad, maybe weekends, every other weekends, week to week, however the custody arrangement is. You'll find that, I lost my train of thought. Hold on, it's coming back. You'll find that some people will only put the child, the parent, on child support because of some petty situation. Something didn't work out, something didn't happen, you didn't do this or they didn't do that. And it's like, well, if the parent is here and being active and doing the things they're doing, why do they have to support you as well? Meaning, like, if I'm taking my child every weekend, every week, whatever the custody arrangement is, I also have to still provide for the child while the child's with me. Now, if I'm in a situation where I can't afford to be able to spend time with the child due to the child support, then that time we're supposed to have together is compromised. How can I support myself, support the child, and pay child support? Most people these days have to work 2 jobs. I don't know anyone that doesn't really don't have 2 jobs. They either had one, they have one, or they're looking for one, whatever the situation may be. But the average person, just off rip, has to work 2 jobs, right? So now if I'm on child support, and now I'm paying, let's say I'm paying like $700, right? So I'm paying $700 for child support. Then when my child's with me, I'm paying an extra $500-$600 just to take care of them during my time. And then I also still have myself and I have my bills, right? So if I'm finding struggle in being able to financially support not only myself, but to pay the bills or my child, now that means I'm not spending time with the child because I have to go to work. And I know people that are in situations like that where it's like, yo, I want to be able to spend time with my child, but I can't because I got to work. And then it turns into this, well, when the child is with him or her, they're not even there. But it's like, are they not there because they don't want to be? Or are they not there because they have responsibilities to keep? Like I said, child support can be a good thing in certain circumstances, but I feel like if the parent is active and continuously there for the child, it shouldn't even get to that point. But again, a lot of times that happens because of some petty reason. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know why, but sometimes it can be, prime example, myself. Again, I was getting the advice of co-parenting from someone else who was in that situation. And it was like, hey, you have your stuff, she have her stuff. And if something is needed that the other parent can't provide, then by all means help the other parent. But other than that, you keep your stuff, she keep her stuff. And when I got my child support order, it was like, well, what is this for? And it was just like, oh, this is so nobody can confuse on who does what for Adrian. And I'm just like, well, I do things for him. But again, it was because I wasn't, well, in my personal opinion, it was because I wasn't just giving or sending stuff all the time. It wasn't like I was just taking clothes down there or, Pampers and stuff like that, because in my mind, she had it. If I had it, I felt like she had it. Again, this is my first experience with this. And being two grown adults who work, I was thinking the same for her. Like, oh, every week I go do this. I find stuff that he needs and I put it up. I thought she was doing the same thing. But I guess she wasn't. Or she was finding difficulties doing the same thing. So eventually that's how I ended up on child support. But again, I just feel like if the parent is active in the child's life and doing things with the child and spending their own money on the child, I truly don't understand why some people decide to put the other parent on child support. It's just it's a interesting choice to make with people who are active in their children's life. And I also find that the weirdest thing is I find that mothers who have the financial means to do what they need to do don't put the fathers who are not around on child support. It's crazy to me. Like the stories I've heard, like, oh, I'm not about to put him on child support. I'm not worried about that. Or, you know, he don't got no money anyway, so there's no point in me putting him on child support. But it's like the parents that are active are all on child support. And I feel like that's because there's a situation that happened where the parents couldn't compromise, and one parent felt like they had one up on the other parent. Again, co-parenting should be about what's in your child's best interest, not what's in the parent's best interest. I understand that my son's mother has obligations outside of taking care of him, and vice versa. I have obligations outside of taking care of him. And by all means, if she ever needed me, I would be there. It's not, I've never been the one to sit there and say, you know what, I'm not taking him because you should be able to figure this out. Because again, just because he's with her on her week, it doesn't stop me from being a dad. And I want to reiterate that because I feel like some people do that. Some people get into their bag and be like, yeah, you figure it out. And again, that hurts nobody but the child. And you have to come to arrangement with each other to be able to support your child in the best way. And they need to see the parents interacting in a healthy way. Like I've had my son ask me, you know, why aren't you and mommy together? Or how come you didn't want to stay with mommy? You know, and these were difficult questions for me. Because again, the situation wasn't a situation where me and her was together. We were fooling around and he came from that. So, you know, I had to really like gather my words to explain to him, like, you know, this is the situation. I have nothing but love for your mother. It's not that I dislike her or anything like that. He was just curious because of his friends and, you know, seeing things on TV where they have families all together. And for him, unfortunately, he has to deal with our co-parenting. You know, he may never know a home that is normal in a sense, because I don't have any plans on, you know, ever dating my son's mother again. So that situation will never come about for him. And it's like, those are the things you also have to think about too in those situations. Like, how do I explain to my child that, you know, they aren't in a situation where, you know, daddy or mommy stays together or live in the same household together. You know, that can be a frustrating conversation, and you can kind of see the disappointment on their face with that. And I think that was like one of the biggest things that kind of hurt me with him, because it's like, oh man, like, you know, I didn't intend for this. It doesn't mean I love you any less or anything like that. It's just we didn't plan on having a child together. And I didn't tell him that, of course, but, you know, that was a difficult question for me to answer. But again, I tried to make the co-parenting situation as best as possible. I try to work with his mother as best as possible because I do not want him to be a victim to our disputes and our disagreements. He don't deserve that. And I definitely have grown. I definitely have found myself wanting to be petty, but then being like, nah, I can't be petty because that doesn't hurt anybody but him. It's a difficult situation for most people. And I've heard stories of people having great co-parenting situations, and I don't know if that was due to them having a relationship prior to the child being there or them just being able to put their prides to the side. But for the most part, even in my situation, it's been a journey. It's definitely been difficult. And I recommend that if people are having issues, that they should take these co-parenting classes. They should try to understand the other parent, and they should take the other parent's perception or perspective into consideration because, again, I'm just as much as his father as she is his mother. And it takes two. I mean, it takes a village, but it also takes two people being able to sit down to put their differences, to put their differences aside, to be able to raise their child properly. You know, I don't want to see my son grow up and be put in a position where he has to make choices that will either end his life or put him behind bars. And I feel like she thinks the same way. And I feel like eventually our situation will improve. Very seldomly we've had disagreements, but we've had them. And in the beginning, they were a little more extreme. But now it's just like, okay, what can we do to figure this out? Because this needs to benefit him, not us. And I want people to understand that that's what you have to do. Like I said, I can't say this enough. It's about the child. It's about the child. It's about the child. It's never about myself or her and anybody else that's in this situation. That's how you have to operate. And granted, I understand some people don't even have another parent to begin with. And that's a whole nother topic and frustration and difficulty. But fortunately, I want to be in my son's life. And I want to see him be the best version of himself that he can be. And I feel like she wants the same thing. And it's why we've been able to not have as many disputes with each other. And why we've been making choices to benefit him. So that is my perception on co-parenting. Like I said, this is the last live I'm doing, and I will be pre-recording episodes and posting them via YouTube, SoundCloud, and of course I'm gonna post the links and clips because, like I said, I want a more professional setting, a more professional capture through camera. And I've enjoyed these lives. I told myself I was gonna do 5. And I did 5. So moving forward, everything will be pre-recorded and available for anybody to listen to starting not next week, because of course that's Super Bowl, probably the following week. I am going to do a live though with my best friend. We're going to do a live where we play this game called Let's Get Deep. I played it with my girlfriend. It's very interesting. Definitely has some good questions in there. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tapping in with me. And I'll see you guys soon.